third level was at the bottom of the dragon tribe. Even a fifth level cultivator could belittle Jacob, who had the title of an assisting inspector. Even in the inspector system, the one with the highest strength spoke the loudest. At the 8th level, Susan didn't need to speak, and other inspectors would give way to her. The reason that the South Atlantic Dragon Clan was so overbearing and aggressive toward the North Atlantic Dragon Palace was that it had the largest number of elders who were on the 7th and 8th level among all 4 Ocean Dragon Palaces. Jacob clenched his fists and decided to accelerate his cultivation process. The elevation of realms was important, but the battle experience was also crucial. He promised himself that he was going to go to the general examination of the Dragon God Shrine and win. Jacob stepped onto the teleportation array and returned to the academy downtown before taking a bus back to his college for the afternoon classes. Jonah could cultivate all year round in the depth of the mountains, but Jacob had to live in the city. He must find a more efficient way to elevate his realm.
Jacob, where have you been? I've been looking for you but couldn't find you anywhere.
Ryan walked over and threw his arm over Jacob's shoulder, yelling at him. I had to run an errand and my cell phone's connection was poor, Jacob said.
Tonight we'll go to the karaoke place. Will you join us?
Ryan shook Jacob's shoulder and asked.
I can't. I'm busy tonight. Today's my birthday and I'm paying.
Ryan continued to shake him. Jacob didn't want to neglect his friendship with the guys. However, he had to head over to Sophie's place to see where the situation lay. I have some work today, but I promise I'll try to make it, Jacob said. What are you arguing about? Time for class. Their professor walked into the classroom with books in his hand. The class suddenly quieted down and got ready for the lesson. After class, Ryan and the other guys headed outside for an early dinner before going to the karaoke place. Jacob went to the bus stop to take the bus straight over to Sophie's house. Inspectors were allowed to travel freely in the sky, but it wouldn't be a wise idea to fly since this was a personal issue. By the time he got off the bus and walked to Sophie's home, it was exactly 6 o'clock. Helen was cooking in the kitchen, and Dracon and Sophie hadn't gotten back yet. Usually, they would be back around 20 past 6, since Sophie participated in a bunch of extracurriculars, so Jacob could spend these 20 minutes helping Helen.
Hey!
Jacob walked into the kitchen.
Jacob, hey!
Helen smiled back at Jacob. Without another word, Jacob rolled up his sleeves and started rinsing the vegetables beside Helen. The two of them working together undoubtedly accelerated the speed. Helen was not only a top architect, but also a great cook. Her entire cooking process was as smooth and elegant as a performance.
Mom, I'm back!
Sophie's clear and melodious voice came from the living room. She came into the steaming kitchen and realized that Jacob was already there. Her smile widened at the sight of him.
Go wash your hands now that you are back. Rest for a bit in the living room and wait for your dad. The dinner will be ready in a moment.
Helen pinched Sophie's button nose and said with love. Jacob helped Helen and placed the dishes on the dining table. The door opened all of a sudden, and Dracon walked in with his bag. He took off his coat and hung it on the hanger beside the door.
Hi, Dad!
Sophie greeted cheerfully. Then she immediately zipped her mouth when she noticed Dracon's gloomy expression.
Get ready for dinner.
Helen wiped her hands and said softly. Without saying a word, Dracon walked to the dining table and sat down at the head of the table. Sophie had no idea what was going on. Without hesitating, she walked to the dining table timidly and sat down beside Jacob. From her experience, she could tell that her dad was probably upset about something in the palace, or...
Could it be Dad found out about us sneaking into Fifth Heaven?
She thought. Sophie slightly turned to Jacob, inquiring for more information with caution. Yet Jacob looked very calm and stiff, which set her off. Her worry was through the roof. She could already feel a grounding coming. Sophie picked up her spoon carefully, waiting for Dracon to say something.
Eat first. If there's an issue, we'll talk about it after dinner.
Helen eased the situation. Dracon picked up his spoon, thought for a bit, and put it back down. No one dared to start eating since he put his spoon down. Sophie was worried. She nervously put the spoon down and looked to her mom, seeking help. Although Dracon always looked serious at home, it was the first time that he was this serious. Helen didn't notice Sophie's pleading look. She held her breath and looked at Dracon calmly. Then Dracon coughed loudly.
I'll confess, Dad,
Sophie said quickly.
I shouldn't have gone to Fifth Heaven. I shouldn't have asked Jacob to take me up there. And I shouldn't have taken anything from the human cultivators.
She took out a storage bag from her pocket, placing the short sword Jacob gave her onto the table. She knew from experience that as long as she fessed up, Dracon wouldn't be as mad. Therefore, she made a confession before Dracon said anything. Dracon was surprised by Sophie's words, and Sophie was stupefied by Dracon's reaction.
Wait, he didn't know about us going to Fifth Heaven?
She got nervous. I'll deal with your issue later. Dracon looked stern. She blinked, thinking,
what has happened that even going up to the Fifth Heaven is not a big deal in comparison?
This completely befuddled her. Dracon slowly turned to Jacob. Jacob automatically sat up straighter as Dracon fixed his eyes on him. Today, we are talking about Jacob's issue, Dracon said, making sure to enunciate each word. Jacob's blood ran cold, but he laughed awkwardly since he wasn't as panicky as Sophie. Elder Frank told me about your trip to the Martial Arts Academy today. I believe you are aware of the situation, right? Dracon continued. Sophie looked at Dracon and then at Jacob, having no idea what was going on.
What situation?
Yes, I'm aware. I came here today to tutor Soph, as well as to hear what you think about it, Jacob said. We have two options now. Dracon pushed his plate a little away, demonstrating that he didn't plan to eat yet. First, the North Atlantic Dragon Clan can call for an early Dragon Tribe conference. Second, if we could get a Heavenly Dragon Realm Master who could truly dominate over other forces.
Dragon Tribe Conference? Doesn't it happen every 2 years?
Sophie asked, but she immediately shut her mouth when Helen looked in her direction. If we go with the Dragon Clan Conference, it would be a very tough negotiation. The South Atlantic would make a big deal out of this and make us pay their loss. Otherwise, North Atlantic will be isolated. If we can obtain a Heavenly Dragon Realm Master, they wouldn't have much to say because we will be much more powerful than the other dragon clans. Jacob nodded. He understood that the latter option was almost impossible. Therefore, a negotiation seemed to be the only way to save North Atlantic. What would it be like if we were to call for the early conference? Jacob asked. The South Atlantic Dragon Palace is one of the 4 Ocean Dragon Palaces, no matter what. They possess almost 1/6 of 7th and 8th level masters in the Dragon Tribe. For us, it is a good thing that the South Atlantic Dragon Palace is destroyed. But for the entire Dragon Tribe, our act was nothing but the destruction of our own kind. Dracon's tone was cold, showing his attitude toward this situation. Jacob nodded again. When he went to the South Atlantic Dragon Palace with Noah, he didn't think it through, and he also didn't expect the treasure to be that powerful. It was a great feeling when destroying half of the South Atlantic Dragon Palace. However, it put the North Atlantic Dragon Clan under the accusation of violating the alliance. This trapped North Atlantic in an awkward position in the public's eye. Now that the South Atlantic Dragon Clan lost so many resources and face that it was beyond repair, they wanted to drag the North Atlantic Dragon Clan down as well. They acted as the weak party and painted North Atlantic as an invader. All the Dragon Clans could see the damage dealt to the South Atlantic Dragon Palace, and it was very easy for them to play the victim now. Therefore, all the powers made a sudden switch from respecting the North Atlantic Dragon Clan to taking precautions against it. They even reduced the number of regular interactions. Instead of benefiting from the defeat of the South Atlantic Dragon Clan, the North Atlantic Dragon Clan earned nothing and was isolated by all the other Dragon Clans. On the contrary, the South Atlantic Dragon Clan obtained sympathy from many other Dragon Clans, and it secretly became the core of the anti-North Atlantic Alliance. In short, the North Atlantic Dragon Clan was faced with the most critical diplomatic crisis. Once abandoned by the Dragon Tribe, the North Atlantic Dragon Clan would surely foresee its decline. Yet the South Atlantic Dragon Palace still had a chance to rise, since only their wealth and strength were damaged and not the key diplomatic relationships. This was what Drakon was worried about. Jacob should never have agreed to go with Noah. "Tell me what you are thinking, sir," Jacob thought for a bit and asked. Jacob didn't plan to blame this on Noah, since he was just a little boy. Jacob was the one who used the conch and destroyed the Dragon Palace, and all Noah did was offer him the opportunity. "We will try to save the situation at the Dragon Tribe Conference. The worst-case scenario the elders came up with," Drakon looked into Jacob's eyes and said, "is that we will have to sever all ties with you."